Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something a little bit intense today?
Intense is putting it mildly,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess you could say that.
but fascinating too, right?
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about nuclear weapons and technology.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe not FUN exactly, but definitely fascinating and a little bit scary.
I say so.
And we're going to be using this video essay as kind of our guide today. It's called Metin Yapıştırıldı, and it's got some really interesting insights.
It's quite the essay.
Yeah, it doesn't shy away from the tough questions.
No, it does not.
So one of the things that really jumped out at me right away was just how vividly the essay describes nuclear explosions. Like, at one point it talks about a silver lining made of radioactive isotopes.
Yeah, I remember that part.
I mean, it's almost poetic the way it's written, but then you realize what it's actually describing.
It's a strange mix of beauty and horror.
Exactly. And then there's this part where it talks about atoms being literally gutted at temperatures hotter than the sun.
Hard to even imagine.
Right. It's mind-blowing.
And it makes you think about those early photographs of nuclear tests.
Oh, yeah, the ones taken with that special camera.
The Rapatronic camera, it could capture those explosions less than 1,000th of a second after detonation.
Crazy.
Trying to capture something so powerful, so destructive in a single image.
And then the essay goes on to describe the legs of the tower holding the first atomic bomb just instantly vaporized.
Turned into stringing legs of plasma is how it puts it.
Ah.
It's a very visceral image.
It really brings home the destructive force.
Definitely.
Oh, and here's a fact that completely blew my mind. Only 1.38% of the uranium in Little Boy. The bomb dropped on Hiroshima actually fissioned.
Yeah, that's a pretty wild statistic.
It's hard to believe that such a small amount of material could cause so much destruction.
Well, fission is incredibly powerful. You know, the splitting of an atom releases a tremendous amount of energy.
Right, of course.
But even so, just 1.38%, and it caused the devastation we associate with Hiroshima.
It makes you think about what would have happened if a larger percentage had fissioned.
Or what the consequences would be with modern nuclear weapons.
I'm sure far more powerful than the bombs used in World War II.
Exactly. It's a sobering thought.
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of leads into this other point. The essay brings up the fact that there are tens of thousands of nuclear weapons out there in the world.
Scattered all over the globe.
And what happens if there's an accident? A fire, a miscommunication, a rogue officer who decides to launch one?
It's not something you want to think about.
Definitely not. But the essay talks about this concept of acceptable probability.
Right. The idea that a certain level of risk is unavoidable.
So what's the acceptable probability when it comes to nuclear weapons?
Well, the source mentions that the current accepted probability of a nuclear weapon accident is 1 in a million.
1 in a million. That still seems pretty high when you're talking about weapons that can destroy entire cities.
Well, to put it in perspective, the essay compares that to the odds of dying in a commercial plane crash, which in 2012 were about 1 in 40 million.
So statistically speaking, you're more likely to die in a plane crash than in a nuclear accident.
That's what the numbers suggest. But even so, there have been some pretty unsettling close calls with nuclear weapons.
Even here in the U.S.?
Oh, yeah, several. Actually, the essay talks about one in Eureka, North Carolina.
I think I've heard of that.
There's a big sign there that says nuclear mishap.
Imagine just driving down the road and seeing that.
Gives you chills, huh?
Definitely.
So that sign marks the spot where a B-52 bomber carrying 2 4-megaton thermonuclear bombs crashed in 1961.
Thermonuclear bombs. Those are the hydrogen bombs, right?
Yeah, much more powerful than the atomic bombs dropped on Japan.
Like how much more powerful are we talking about?
Well, each of those bombs had a greater explosive yield than all the bombs used in all wars throughout human history combined.
Seriously.
That's what the essay says. It's hard to even wrap your head around that kind of power.
It's just unimaginable. Oh, so what caused the crash anyway?
Apparently, a loose lanyard in the cockpit snagged the bomb release switch, causing the bombs to fall.
Oh, wow.
But here's where it gets even crazier. Amidst all the wreckage, Lieutenant Jack Revell discovered that only a single low-voltage arming switch remained untouched.
And that one switch prevented a nuclear detonation.
According to Revell, yes, if that switch had been flipped, it would have been a catastrophe.
Unbelievable.
It makes you wonder about the safety protocols, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, a loose wire almost triggered a nuclear explosion. It's a little unnerving.
And to add to that, the uranium-rich secondary, which is basically the part of the bomb that undergoes fission, was never recovered from one of those bombs.
So there's still part of a nuclear bomb buried somewhere in North Carolina.
That's right.
That's both fascinating and terrifying.
It definitely gives you pause, and it's not just accidents we have to worry about. The essay also talks about this teenager, David Hahn, who tried to build a nuclear reactor in his mother's backyard in 1994.
Wait, a teenager built a nuclear reactor.
He did. It highlights just how accessible certain radioactive materials can be.
How did he even get his hands on that stuff?
He collected materials like americium from smoke detectors and radium from old glow-in-the-dark paint.
Wow. So he basically built a reactor out of household items.
It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
So he actually managed to build a working reactor.
Well, thankfully, no, it never reached critical mass.
Cool, mass.
The point where a nuclear chain reaction becomes self-sustaining, so it wouldn't have exploded or anything like that.
Okay, that's a relief.
But even so, he exposed his neighborhood to some pretty high levels of radiation.
How high are we talking?
About 1,000 times the normal background radiation.
That's pretty serious.
It definitely highlights the risks associated with even small amounts of radioactive material.
Makes you wonder if there should be stricter regulations on that kind of stuff.
Well, it's a tough balance, between scientific exploration and public safety.
Right, of course. But stories like this definitely make you think. And speaking of events that could have easily gone another way, the essay also talks about a fascinating what-if moment from World War II.
Oh, yeah, the one about Kokura.
Exactly. It mentions how cloud cover over Kokura actually saved the city from being the target of the Fat Man bomb.
Wild, isn't it? The fate of a whole city decided by the weather.
It's like something out of a movie.
But it just goes to show that even with all the destructive power at their disposal, those in charge were still subject to the whims of nature.
I guess you can't control everything.
Nope. Sometimes it's the things we can't control that have the biggest impact.
And then, of course, Nagasaki ended up being the target.
A tragic outcome either way.
Absolutely. And it really makes you think about the human cost of war. The resilience of the Japanese people, even in the face of such devastation.
The essay talks about their incredible loyalty to the emperor, their willingness to fight, even when the odds were stacked against them.
It's hard to even imagine what they went through.
It's a testament to the human spirit, I suppose.
And even after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, some of the Japanese military were still pushing to continue fighting.
That's right. Hard to believe, really.
It was only when the emperor himself stepped in that they finally surrendered.
Recognizing the sheer power of these new weapons, the atomic bombs.
A turning point in history, the dawn of the nuclear age.
A time of incredible scientific advancement, but also a time of immense danger.
And that's where the essay brings in this thought-provoking quote from Richard Feynman.
Ah, yes, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist who also worked on the Manhattan Project.
He wrote, "Is science of any value? I think a power to do something is of value."
Powerful words.
It really makes you think about the purpose of scientific discovery, the responsibility that comes with it.
Is it just about knowledge for knowledge's sake, or is there a moral obligation to use that knowledge for good?
And then he goes on to compare scientific discoveries to keys.
Everything we learn about the universe, everything we invent or discover within it is a key to the gates of heaven. But the same key will also open the gates of hell.
Wow, that's quite a statement.
It's a reminder that every scientific breakthrough, every technological advancement has the potential for both incredible good and unimaginable harm.
A double-edged sword.
Like the Titan II missile, for example.
The one designed to carry nuclear warheads.
The very same perception, but it was also used to launch the Gemini astronauts into space.
So the same technology capable of mass destruction also helped us explore the cosmos.
It all comes down to the choices we make, the paths we choose to follow.
Are we using these keys to open the gates of heaven or the gates of hell?
That's the question we all have to ask ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to put it. And it makes me think about all the new technologies emerging today, things like artificial intelligence and genetic engineering.
It's like we're constantly unlocking new doors without always knowing what's on the other side.
And this deep dive has really highlighted that, we've gone from the terrifying power of nuclear explosions to those close calls that could have changed the course of history.
And we've only scratched the surface, really.
Right, there's still so much more to explore, but for me, one of the biggest takeaways is just how interconnected everything is.
The science, the history, the ethics, it all kind of blends together.
And it's hard to separate the beauty from the terror.
Like those images of nuclear explosions, they're both mesmerizing and horrifying at the same time.
It's a strange paradox, isn't it? This destructive force that can also be strangely beautiful.
And then there's a human element, those stories of near misses and accidents that remind us how fallible we are.
Even with all our technology and safety protocols, one wrong move can have catastrophic consequences.
And then you have someone like David Hahn building a nuclear reactor in his backyard, it shows you how accessible these materials can be.
And how important it is to be aware of the risks, even with seemingly harmless things.
We can't just assume that technology will always be used for good.
We have to be vigilant. We have to ask questions. We have to think about the consequences of our actions.
And that's where Feynman's quote about the keys to heaven and hell really comes into play.
It's such a powerful metaphor. It really stuck with me.
It's a reminder that we have a choice. We can use our knowledge to build a better world, or we can use it to destroy ourselves.
And those choices are being made every day by scientists, by politicians, by everyday people like us.
So it's up to all of us to be informed, to engage in these conversations, to think critically about the future we want to create.
We can't just bury our heads in the sand and hope for the best.
We have to be active participants in shaping the future.
Well said. And I think that's a great note to end on.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
Absolutely. And I hope it's inspired our listeners to keep learning and exploring this topic.
There's a whole universe of information out there waiting to be discovered.
And the more we know, the better equipped we'll be to make those tough choices about the future.
So keep those minds engaged, folks.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of nuclear technology.
Until next time.